Hello, leader. Today, it's the second episode of a series designed specifically for your team leaders who are responsible to lead people, processes, and profit centers. They come in all shapes and sizes and backgrounds, and they'll bring their own unique style and culture to your small business every day. But how are they doing? Really? Are they feeling competent, confident, and on track? Do they worry that they're not cut out for this role? Do they struggle with understanding what being a leader means? Join me in this series that will provide you and your team leaders with some reinforcement so that they're more clear and able to focus on what matters as they continue to evolve into effective leaders. If you missed the first episode that aired last week, go back and check that out. It was all about how confrontation is your friend when you are in a leadership role. Today's topic, complacency is your enemy. And by the way, it's often how things get really off track and turn forgetfulness and minor mistakes into big messes. And I know you don't want that. Welcome to the Stacking Your Team podcast. If you are a woman who owns a small business and you'd like to learn how to lead your team so they don't need you to hold their hand, you are in the right place. I'm your host, Shelli Warren. I've led winning teams in retail, innovative technical teams at a Fortune 50 corporation, and coached many remote teams to win at work. And in case you're wondering, no one escapes team troubles, including me. You already know that the people side of running your business can be tough. I'm here to help. So let's jump into today's episode with a little reminder that the team that got you here may not be the team that will get you there. You'll notice in this series of episodes that I'm referring to you as team leaders. At Stacking Your Team, I consider team leaders to be people who are being paid to lead people, processes, and profit centers. Now, you may or may not be client-facing. You may be billable or non-billable. Your actual role title might be something like lead trainer, operations manager, clinical director, or senior store manager. Maybe you're a technical designer, a lead hygienist, a law firm administrator, or something similar. It's not about your role title, it's about the outcomes that you deliver. You've been tasked to improve the business, and that requires you to lead. So whether you are new to your leadership role or you're a long-standing leader, you're going to find these topics relevant. So let's get into it. Complacency is your enemy when you are in a leadership role because there's a stench of stagnation in your workplace. Now, stagnation looks like this. People are showing little to no growth or improvement in their performance over time. They become content with maintaining the status quo and showing little motivation to seek out challenges or opportunities for development. And yet, they'll tell you that they're working so hard. Here are some other super common signs that your team has become complacent. Number 1, there's a slight to definite lack of initiative. Here's what this looks like. Team members often showing a reluctance to take initiative or pursue new opportunities by sticking to routine tasks and avoiding stepping out of their comfort zone. They'll also push back on any requests that will require them to learn something new or take on a new responsibility. This then manifests into a strong resistance to change. Some people resist so much that they'll prefer and fight to maintain a system or a process or a piece of tech that's familiar to them, even though it's less effective and efficient. You'll hear some team members declare that they're satisfied with the existing solutions and then fail to explore new ideas or approaches to problem solving. And this can sound like this. Well, we've always done it that way. Or, don't worry about it. It'll all work out. Number 2, complacency often results in decreased engagement and enthusiasm among team members. They may exhibit signs of disinterest or apathy towards the work, leading to lower productivity and morale across the whole team. When confronted with their lack of involvement or mistakes or their mediocre performance, they can resort to playing the blame game. They'll claim that external factors or other team members actually were the one that created the problems or the setbacks, rather than taking responsibility for their own actions and contributing to finding solutions. Number 3. Now here's one that can really trip teams up. Complacency can sometimes be masked by overconfidence or sense of entitlement. Leaders and team members may become complacent if they believe that they've already achieved success and no longer need to strive for any kind of improvement. When you confront them about not following through on something or not following a standard or intervening to lessen the impact of a problem, they're resistant to that feedback. They may also believe that they're above being confronted and can appear visibly shocked that someone would not be thrilled with their performance. Because they lack the self-awareness of how their behavior is impacting results and others on the team, they will avoid seeking input from anyone and are not open to learning from their mistakes. Now, this goes directly against their career goals and their inflated reputation because no one wants to work alongside them, nor would they be in line for any kind of promotion because they're not interested in growing and developing as a person. Number 4. What if you, the leader, have become complacent in your performance? This shows up as wanting to stay as long as possible in your comfort zone. You avoid challenging yourself or taking risks. You resist opportunities for growth or change that require stepping outside your familiar territory. This kind of attitude as a leader directly and most negatively impacts the growth of your team and the business. Why? Because if you walk around all day with this outlook, it seeps into your team. And so people will shift into doing the minimum. They'll become comfortable in being an underachiever and fail to meet expectations, even the most basic of expectations. And yes, you guessed it, the evidence will not only be in your team culture, it will appear in the low to no results delivered, leading to lost revenues and declining clients and customers. Hey, I'm pressing pause here for a minute to let you know, if you didn't already, that the Stacking Your Team Team Leader Program is available for you to take advantage of. If you are a leader at a small business, now you're not the owner, and yet you're committed to your role and you want to build a career in that small business, here's your chance. Why not up-level your impact through relevant and easy-to-apply trainings? Some of my signature tools and frameworks that will save you time, provide an easy way for you to be consistent, and amp up your effectiveness in your role. And yes, I'm your coach, and you'll have monthly and quarterly live sessions with me. Your next best step is to talk with your leader and request that she support you in the development and enroll you today inside the Stacking Your Team Team Leader Program. It's affordable and exactly what you need to excel in your role. Don't believe me? Check out the testimonials on the website. And hey, you don't need to be in corporate to have a career or leap over into entrepreneurship. You can have a very worthwhile career in a small business, and I'm here to help you. Okay, let's get back to the episode. So let's turn this around by considering this. Make it an expectation that everyone on your team, regardless of their role or their years of experience or their proximity to the founder, will not get comfy with the status quo. When leaders talk about, repeat, and reinforce the need for everyone to embrace change instead of resisting it and wanting to hide under the covers of familiarity, they will be more apt and ready to dive into new initiatives, new services, new tech, and new ways of doing things. Now, another way of leading that will put an end to complacency is to create a workplace environment where failing is celebrated, not feared. You can do this by teaching your team how to laugh out loud about the uncomfortability of stepping outside your comfort zones. You can tell stories about skepticism to embrace a new tool or system and what it's like now that the team has overcome that challenge. Talking about complacency during team meetings and one-to-ones also make it normal to keep an eye out for this, and your team members can start to openly speak about this with each other, especially when they recognize signs of drifting back into those comfort zones. By talking about complacency, you're boosting everyone's awareness that it's a real thing. Some people truly may not be aware that they have a habit of resisting anything new, difficult, or stretching. As their leader, you've got to point this out to them as a way of helping them ramp up the outcomes linked to the specifics on their 5-hour work plans. You'll also be getting everyone on the same page for priorities. When team members have different priorities or goals and they are not aligned, it can lead to conflicting agendas or hidden agendas. I'm sure you've seen how all this misalignment and disconnect, along with what can feel like rogue behavior, causes so much confusion right across your team. It most definitely makes it harder for you, their leader, to keep everyone on the same path moving forward. So a few things to be aware of as you seek to ramp up your efforts to put an end to complacency are to watch for signs that people are resistant to doing things differently simply because they're seeing it coming from a position of authority. They can push back, claiming that you don't truly understand what they're up against and that you're so far removed from the day-to-day operation that you simply don't know as much as they do. And here's where humility matters. You're going to want to show up as that leader who will listen and learn from them because the people closest to the work know the most about the work. Good grief. You've heard me harp on about that so often. And your role is to discern whether you really are being unreasonable and ill-informed or whether the team member is being resistant to change or continual improvement because they'd rather not step outside of their comfort zone. The better the relationship you have with your team, the more they will trust you that you really do have their best interests at heart and you're wanting to secure a future for each of them because the business is on track and growing, instead of being that leader who's strictly wanting to push their own agenda forward regardless of the valuable input from the team. Before I let you go today, I want to encourage you that if you take one thing away from today's episode, let it be this: complacency is your enemy. As a leader, you are being held accountable to ensure no one is put in harm's way because of a safety or quality compliance outage, which can often happen when teams become complacent about legislation. You're also responsible to coach team members through their complacency struggles and the uncomfortability change can bring on for them. Knowing that everyone on the team needs to learn how accepting the status quo can damage the incredible culture, client, and customer roster and the community impact you've had all along the way really does matter. It all comes down to evolving into that leader who has great communication and relationship building skills. And these can be mastered through practice, learning, and having the tools that boost your confidence to try a different approach with your team. I want to encourage you to consider setting up the expectation with your team members to listen to this episode and then talk about it at your next team meeting or your next one-to-one. If you are a team leader, what did this episode spark for you? Why not reflect on it and then discuss your thoughts with your direct leader or other members of your leadership team? I'm sure they'll be keen to hear from you. Complacency is your enemy when you are in a leadership role. Now, as I mentioned at the start of this episode, this is the second episode within a series that are designed for team members. So if you haven't subscribed to the Stacking Your Team podcast, do it now. I also want to prompt you to consider enrolling in the Stacking Your Team Team Leader Program. And while you're checking that out on the website, do yourself another big favor and grab the Ask Shelli script bundles so that you have the words and the phrases that will help you learn how to confront people without sounding like you're reading a script. Leadership can be exciting, challenging, and lonely at times. So don't go it alone. Let me help you create the team and the leadership structure that you've been craving. So until next time, remember, if you have a dream, you need a team. So let's get stacking yours today.